Hi, you guys. Welcome to the Soul Driven podcast, where we explore the essence behind the excellence and the soul behind the success. I'm your host, Colette Davenport, and today I'm joined by Michael Collins. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Really good. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in with you. Before we learn more about who you are, why don't you share with us what you do in the world? What's your thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I travel the world visiting ancient sites and documenting ancient sites. So it's that kind of sums it up. Um, and basically, I have a YouTube channel. I host tours so people can join me, um, speaking at conferences. And so, really, what I'm trying to do is share with people a bit of the joy that's changed my life in terms of traveling, experiencing other cultures, and having these experiences. And hopefully, inspiring other people to do the same and know that it's a lot easier than I think sometimes people think. And it's totally worthwhile and can change your life if you're into that.
Yeah, beautiful. And so tell everybody the name of your YouTube channel.
Absolutely, yeah. Wandering Wolf. The company's Wandering Wolf Productions, so that's my website. But the channel's Wandering Wolf on YouTube.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it's a good one, you guys. I've shared it with many, many people, and everyone I've shared it with is like, oh my God, this is so inspiring. And I'm like, I know, and I know this guy.
Thank you.
And so, with that in mind, yeah, you're welcome. And with that in mind, let's share with this audience who you are. But before I ask you my first question, I'm going to go off camera so that I can sink in, sync up, and ask these questions from the soul. So, soul to soul, here we go.
Yeah,
You ready?
ready.
All right. Okay, cool. So, um, Hmm. Why don't we start with the origin of your work? What led you to do what you're up to today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh God, how far back do I go? Let me give you, let's start with, I worked in sales for about over a decade, over 10 years, and it was very unfulfilling. It was fulfilling in all the ways that are not fulfilling in the ways that we need as people. I was making good money. I had all those things, but I was pretty miserable inside. And, it really led to, along with the job, but the job was making me miserable. I just didn't feel like I had a purpose, and I had a lot of other things happen in my life in terms of hardships and stuff. And that really led to this kind of downward spiral of looking in areas that can't fill you up in those regards. So drugs and things like that, you know, meaningless physical relationships and things like that. So it was, a really low point. And I got to a point where I realized that I was going to die. That's how bad it was. I had a serious drug problem. And, one day I just, I kind of had a come to Jesus moment, literally. And I realized that I didn't have anything to lose. So why not just quit all of these things that were making me miserable and just try to find something that I loved and start trying to be happy, because I only have one life. And when I kind of got to that point, I realized that basically I had a blank check and I could go out there into the world every day and try to cash it. And I'd never get in trouble, even no matter how many times that check got rejected. I just needed it to hit once, and I could keep trying every day. And that's what I did. I started traveling. I quit my job, and within 2 weeks I was sober. I mean, immediately I was just already um, just happy from leaving that space, this environment of just pursuing where the end goal was always, it was just money. And I needed something more than that. And I visited my first ancient site, Sacsayhuaman, down in Peru, and I immediately knew that that was what I wanted to do with my life, the traveling, the visiting these sites. There was something really special to me about putting my hand on something that was so spectacular, these megalithic stones that we can't move today, and feeling inspired that if they could do this that long ago, what might I also be capable of? Um, what kind of giant stones in my life might I be able to move? And
Right.
so I just kept traveling, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I just started recording things. I had no experience with video. I had no experience with drone work. I had no experience on YouTube or anything like that. But I'm kind of stubborn sometimes. So I kind of just, there's plenty of times there where the only thing keeping me going was a refusal to quit because I wasn't good at anything at the time. And that's what I did. I just didn't quit and I kept going. And, it's taken some time, but we're 10 years later. And, I've been able to build something that where every day now I wake up grateful for the life that I have. I was just thinking about it today. I was running around doing errands and stuff this morning, and just thinking about the fact that I get to do, schedule my own time and do things that I want, choose the people that I want to be involved with in my life, go where I want. It took a lot of hard work the last 10 years to do that. So this is 2016-ish about when I quit that job. So it's taken about 10 years, and most of that has been a grind. This year is the year that all of that work has really started paying off with plans and commitments moving into 2026. And one of the other big changes that I made was, I came from this background of always focusing on the end goal, the deal, the result. And at some point over the last 5 years, maybe, even into this journey, I stopped focusing on the outcome and started focusing on the relationships. And that's made all the difference. And it's been a wild ride. And yeah.
Beautiful. You mentioned waking up eager for the day's activities. Let's distinguish how you wake up today versus how you woke up before.
Paint a really stark contrasting picture from
Yeah.
how things used to be. I was a heroin addict. I'd wake up and the first thing I do is shoot up heroin. That went on for years. Now I wake up and the first thing I do is I hit my knees and I thank God for my life and all the wonderful things in it. And I choose to start my day in gratitude. And that pours over immediately into how I take care of my animals. I have an 18-year-old blind, deaf, twice cancer beating beagle who needs a lot of special attention, and a cat that's very talkative when she's hungry. And so, my mornings involve, what I just mentioned, and then taking care of them. And I think that these are things that, for whatever reason, it was hard to care for other people when I had no care in my own life for myself. And other people, I mean, like even just my animals, it was hard not to just be frustrated that I had to take my dog out, that I had to feed him, that I had to like give him medicine and stuff. And that sounds, I don't know how that sounds. To me, it sounds crazy now that I was in such a space 10 years ago or more that I could get, frustrated at the fact that I had to just do mundane tasks. And now I'm grateful that I get to take care of my little dog and cat that love me and follow me around the house and keep me company. There's a shift in perspective of the world that I live in. The world that I live in now is completely different than the world that I lived in 10 years ago. How I see it, how I move through it, how I view people. There's a confidence now within me that didn't used to exist. It's okay for there to be bad people out there. Like I have control of my space. I mean, as insofar as the choices that I make, I can, if somebody shows me who they are and I don't like them, or they're not treating me well, I don't have to continue to engage. But there used to be this sense of obligation to anyone in my life and things and guilt and stuff that I walked around with all the time that I don't anymore. And so I'm very grateful every day when I wake up for the life that I have, and that I get to work on things that I've, put so much effort into seeing grow and bear fruit, that I get to do that and work with other people that are doing that with their lives. Perfect example right here. And yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's taken a lot of hard work, but golly, I mean, it's so worth it.
What shifted internally? Was it an identity? Was it a belief? What was the major internal shift that occurred for you that allows you to see the world the way that you do today and have this very evident gratitude for your life?
Yeah, it's been a process. I think, the first thing I did was I admitted to myself what I was, which was I looked directly in the mirror and I said that you're a junkie. I acknowledged to myself the reality of the situation that I was in. So the first thing I did was acknowledge my own reality and stopped lying to myself about where I was at. So I
And what did that
literally,
feel like?
that moment literally happened in the mirror. I was standing there looking at myself in the mirror in just absolute disgust and, disappointment and, all these horrible feelings flooding over me while I was staring into my own eyes. And then I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up with faith or anything like that, but God's been a real presence in my life since I was a kid. And I think in that moment, for whatever reason, I had a childhood where I just asked God, anyone to save me. I had that kind of childhood. And whenever I've asked, he's shown up. And I said, I can't do this anymore on my own. And so I laid it down. I admitted the reality of my situation. Then I laid it down because I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't carry it in on my own. I'd hit my limit. I was going to die. I'd already done that, overdosed several times and been resuscitated. Shortly after that, I started taking responsibility for everything. When I started taking responsibility for everything, literally everything, it gives you a certain degree of, I don't like using the word control because control is like, but it gave me a certain level of control over my own life, autonomy in terms of making decisions, making the right decisions, being responsible. Sitting in that for several years of learning how to take responsibility for my own actions, my own decisions. Even when things come into my life, hardships or things, there's all sorts of things that come into our lives on a regular basis we have no control over. But I can take responsibility over the fact that I've allowed, like, maybe that person, or I got involved in this thing or whatever. And so I can draw boundaries and different things. So it started giving me a healthier way of interacting with the world, the external world outside of myself. From that, things kind of grew and developed into a sense of gratitude. And from gratitude, once you exist in a state of gratitude for long enough, there's something really amazing happens and you can start experiencing joy. And I'm not talking about, like, it's been a long day and you eat a whole chocolate cake type of joy. I mean, like, real internal joy and peace. Um, I don't know what comes after joy. That's where I'm at. So it really went from kind of owning the reality of my situation and myself, surrender, responsibility, gratitude, shifted into joy. I don't know if we'd want to live in a constant state of joy or bliss, or bliss, that's almost like what you're chasing when you're on drugs sometimes, but it's like joy presents itself in ways in my life now. And it's that's kind of where I'm at. You remember how I told you about my dog possibly snoring? So I don't know if you can hear him right now, but he's going off.
No, I can't hear him.
Okay, good. You stopped picking him up on the microphone. Okay, that's good. I mean, I can hear him. I'm like, buddy, I should have. I know better too than to have him in here with me, but Yeah.
That's really beautiful and really incredible, and I appreciate your transparency. These are important conversations to have because there's a lot of people who are in the shoes you were in 2016 and before, um, who maybe haven't hit rock bottom or haven't had that come to Jesus moment with themselves, haven't looked themselves in the eyes in the mirror to see what was really going on, haven't had the courage or see the situation as able to be overcome, whatever the situation is, right? Because drugs, alcohol, any of these are actually coping mechanisms. They're never the actual problem. They're ways that we deal with the problem. The problem is always, in my 20 years of being in the business that I'm in, every single time I've observed this, and in my own life as well, the problem, the issue, if you will, is always one of spiritual or source nature. It's always a spiritual crisis that creates our physical crisis, our mental crisis, our financial crisis. Um, and then we go about coping in a myriad of ways. And yeah, drugs is one. I've been there too. And you're right. Unless we're willing to see and be seen, um, by source, by God, we're either going to stay on that path or something is going to, a freight train is going to hit us and knock us off of it. Um, and thankfully, you didn't get hit by a freight train. Um, and you're here to tell the story. So thank you for telling your story. And I know you just recently wrote a book. Can you, without giving it all away or give it all away, whatever you want to do, um, can you tell us what the impetus for writing the book has
Yeah.
been?
Really, and it kind of lines up with what you were just saying. I just wanted to tell my story in the hopes that if it helps one person, then it would, everything that I went through would be worth it. And there's a lot of things in there. It's not just, this drugs. I, kind of alluded to a little bit of my childhood and stuff. So there's things that I think, you can take out of your life, your struggles and your hardships. And if you do look in the mirror and face those things and deal with them, then you can turn them into assets to connect with other people and help other people. And my life changing to the point of valuing relationships has been, I look at all these things that I've been through now as, assets to help me connect with other people on a massive level. Everybody's has gone through something, and we've all, it's not a, there isn't some kind of scale of how much you've been through. We've all been through stuff. And I think the more that you've been through, the more if you kind of do these things, like look at yourself, make these changes and commit to, like, you know, believing in a better version of yourself, you have opportunity to take these past hurts and struggles and use them to be able to connect with people in real, genuine ways. And that's what my hope is with the book. I'm wrapping it up right now, so it's not out yet. It should be out here in the next few months, or towards the end of summer. But it's a biography, and it just is going over my life from childhood till now. And we've got to wrap it up soon, because the longer that I wait, I keep having to update the ending. That's the, I just got all these amazing things have been happening over the last couple of years. Amazing and really challenging and hard to deal with things. But yeah, I'll have it done here soon, and it'll be out in a few months.
What is the philosophy that you live by?
Yeah, like a one word sentence philosophy that
Whatever
one
you've got,
sentence.
what comes up? Yeah.
I for me, it's my relationship with God, with Jesus. It's become a cornerstone in my life that sets the standard of what I'm trying to be as a man. I I think that that encapsulates the ideal version of masculinity to me, of kindness and love and acceptance, but not at the expense of not telling people the truth, being genuine about things, and that includes myself, right? So you had a great point earlier, which was with the drugs and stuff like that. It's I never saw the drugs as the problem either. It was a symptom of the problem. There's an underlying thing there. My goal is never to be sober. It was to figure out why I'm behaving this way. And so I think just, being authentic with myself allows me to authentically move within the world and with people. And it's a lot easier to be your genuine self when you're being honest and genuine with you. It's a lot easier to be genuine in everything with the world, is what I mean, and people, when you're authentic with yourself first. So clean all that shit up, and then go out there in the world and fail a whole bunch of times until you make it.
Yeah.
I value
Yeah.
failure now so much. I didn't used to look at it that way. Failure was tough to deal with in a lot of areas of my life.
I can relate to that. Um, yeah, I mean, I was definitely raised to be successful. Uh, I was valedictorian. I was in varsity sports from as a freshman in high school, all that. So, that the household that I grew up in valued academics and athletics, and so I excelled. Um, but as soon as I got out of the house, I went the opposite direction. I rebelled, started working as a call girl, dropped out of college, boys, booze, and drugs, the whole thing, and yeah, just lived through experiences and learned so much. And that was, early to mid 20s, and then I started getting real curious about why, like you said, why do we humans um, do what we do? So the human behavior, the drug use, all of that, right? Like what's behind, what's underneath all of this? And that led into the more professional side of the career. um, and today that's what I see as well. I talk about when I work with my clients, like I don't help my clients solve their problem. I help them understand um, the source of the situation. And from that realization, now a new perspective, a new identity, a lot of times, a new foundation can be built so that we're not trying to solve a surface problem that is actually never the actual issue. Um, so, what did you learn? I'm curious. What did you discover was the underlying issue for you?
I think it really boiled down to my sense of self-worth. The drugs, I was in an abusive home environment. I was objectified and abused by my mother. And I think it really confused me growing up of like, and it totally messed up my understanding of relationships with women for a long time. But my value was on, I kind of had it beaten into me that my value was on my appearance, my looks, my availability to women specifically, which became performative and led to a lot of behavior of like, just seeking a sense of value, or through just sex or brief interactions, that's where I drew my value from. And I think if you just took everything, all of it, and boiled it down, it was self-worth. This kind of skewed understanding of my own self-worth, and then never having been given any kind of healthy understanding of managing emotions or relationships or any kind of healthy anything in that regard. So there was a lot of things. There's been a lot of things that I've done in my life that you're only capable of doing when you have an absolute sense of self-worth that's at zero.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know, and because the mic that's here today talking to you, I don't know, I could probably walk right past the mic of 10, 20, 30 years ago and not even recognize them. I don't know who that person is anymore. I know who that person is, but the me that's sitting here now can't understand that behavior anymore because my sense of self-worth is not tied to things like that anymore, or, you know, outside factors.
So let me put this in a context that I have written about and speak about and work with. What you're pointing to is what I call the soul wound, right? It's that misidentification as something other than perfect, whole, loved, complete, the child of God. Those are all different ways of saying the same thing in my mind. In my case, my soul wound, and by the way, the soul wound is like a fingerprint, meaning all humans have them, but everybody's is different. So your soul wound is different from mine, etc. But it's a fundamental mechanism of being human. Now, the soul wound is activated in childhood by something that could be traumatic, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So for anybody listening to this who's like, yeah, I love my parents. I had a great childhood. There wasn't any trauma, so I don't have a soul wound. Bullshit. You do, because the situation that activated it could have been completely benign. Okay. So now with that context, my soul wound is I am. It's always an identity statement starting with the letter or the words I am. I am an ugly, disgusting waste of time. And it's not in the conscious mind, right? I'm not walking around thinking that about myself. It's not even in the subconscious mind. Okay, so that's a lot of people can find their subconscious beliefs and rework them or reprogram your subconscious beliefs. We hear about that a lot. This is at the level of the soul, meaning the mind cannot access it. The mind is a mechanism of the ego. The ego will not let you go there because the ego is protecting you from the worst of the worst of the worst belief, if you will, about itself, about self. So the access point to the soul wound is through the transcendence, going beyond the intellect, beyond ego, beyond the mind. And once we are able to do that, Mike, we actually can touch that which seems untouchable, unnameable, like absolutely off limits, right? That thing that all of our coping mechanisms are protecting us from touching, from knowing, from feeling, from being, even though that's what's running the show, causing all of those behaviors. Now, the thing about the soul wound is it will fuck shit up. It will cause those negative behaviors, but it also causes our successes in life, like the drive to succeed or achieve is also a coping mechanism for the soul wound. So it's not all bad. It's just an aspect of the human condition, but it's an unknown aspect. Um, and it goes further than the idea, the general sense that a lot of times we get through therapy or self help. We get the general sense I'm not good enough or I am worthless, like you said earlier. Um, but the difference between those general understandings is that the soul wound is specific, it's unique, and it's cruel. In other words, I'm worthless is way too nice. It doesn't actually, that's the ego's compensation. It goes, okay, I'll let you go to there, but I'm not going to let you go beyond to the actual wound in your soul that is you. right? And what I'm saying, I'm using a lot of quote fingers over here. I know you can't see me, but um, it's at the level, it's at the threshold between soul and human condition, human consciousness. And it's what allows that infinite, perfect, all loving, all knowing soul, the Son of God, Christ, the Christ consciousness. It's what allows that to enter, quote fingers, enter into the human condition. It's the it's the threshold that gives rise to the human condition. And unless we touch that, we can't actually transform our identity. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just speaking, from my perspective with what I know about myself, I mean, that sense of self-worth and things that I described as, being that root cause for all this behavior, it dictated my whole life path. And I think, what you're describing there is a lot of times it can feel like there was always this feeling for me like I was stuck in a lane, in a specific lane, and life had me stuck in this specific lane. But when you're operating from that and that's why it feels that way. And I've talked to a lot of people that feel, that understand what I'm talking about. Maybe you do too, when you have that sense that you're stuck in that lane. Life is giving you this path, and that's all that you're ever going to get, because it's just, people, you're in your lane and you can't get out of that lane. And it is hard, but you can't get out of that lane because whatever happened to you that set this thing in your head that this is what you are goes back so far that in your life that it does feel like you're stuck. This is what you are. And these are formative years. So you kind of, when things happen to you when you're young, they're formative and it feels permanent as you grow into these behavioral patterns and different things like that. But when you look at all that and you look in the mirror and really look at the reality of like your situation and stuff and recognize that, get to the point where you recognize that those things aren't true, and then you can start making change. You can shift lanes. It's not easy. I don't know, maybe sometimes it's easy for people. It's taken me a decade. I mean, and it's not over. It's not done. But that's life. You keep working on things like, problems or different things. I mean, it would be, I don't, when you start looking at things and realize that change is possible and that you can shift lanes, you start actually appreciating like that life is going to throw problems at you and different things, and that you'll continually be learning more about yourself and growing and having to face things and change. But at some point the perspective shifts, and you're thankful for all that, because it would be a very less exciting world, I think, if you just figured it out. And then what? You just, I mean, there's a lot of comparable things in terms of the inner and outer experiences that we have. And just like I don't want to retire. I'm not building a life for retirement. I want to find something that I want to do for the rest of my life until I'm like hiking to some ancient site or up a mountain and croak over. I'm fine with that. Hopefully it's in my 90s or something. That'd be great. And I'm active the whole time. The idea of retiring at like 55 or 60 and sitting on a couch for 20 years until I pass away. I've watched people do that. And just like that's not what I'm looking for in my physical world, I'm not looking for that anymore in my spiritual world, or in my soul or my mind. So that keeps me in a state of being actually thankful for problems and failures and things, because also you grow into knowing that you can overcome those things. And confidence starts setting in terms of your ability to navigate this world. And so, with what you're talking about, it ties into a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about. I mean, that's the root issue. If you can look at that part of yourself, then you can actually affect change in your own life and have a bit of degree of influence or control over choosing the kind of person you want to be. And that has a lot of influence and effect on the type of life that you end up having. Did you
They're
hear?
meowing. Yeah. What's been one of the more profound realizations or experiences that you've had through your travels, through your work?
A lot. Probably the best one is that it puts me in a space where I'm fully present. There's always a moment when I'm traveling. I go to a lot of far off places, so a lot of times I won't have internet or connection on cell phone or stuff. So you get about 2 or 3 days in, and you start getting used to not checking your phone every minute, 30 seconds. And then you start getting comfortable being where you're at. And then maybe a few days after that, there's always a moment somewhere when I'm traveling where all of that disappears. The day to day, all these things, that I'm trying to do that feels so important. And then and then I've just been in a space of traveling for long enough, however many days, and I'm in some beautiful spot that I never would have imagined for myself in my previous life. I never would have imagined that I'd go to the places that I've been and see the things that I've seen. And then I just become fully present in that moment. And I'm there experiencing it all. I'm not in my head thinking about the future, and I'm not in my heart or my head thinking about the past. I'm just fully present in that moment. I mean, what an experience. It's really hard. It's really hard to do, to live in the present day to day. We have so much going on all the time, so many things that we're doing. It's just really hard to be fully present in yourself and in the world that you're living in, and not in your own head existing in the future or the past or being influenced on that. And so those are real special moments for me that I value tremendously. Yeah.
Are you able to bring that back with you, so to speak?
Yeah, it started overlapping, and I've been doing it long enough now that it starts to overlap. It happened to me today. I was telling you about it earlier. I was shopping, and it was like 11 o'clock, and I'm pulling out of the parking lot after getting, you know, so much animal food and stuff, and yeah, it just hit me what I was doing and how, and just all of a sudden I was just fully present in the moment, and I was just so thankful that it's 11 a.m. on a Monday, and I'm running errands to take care of my little animals that I love, and I'm not working a job that I was happy to be in that moment, and I was just doing mundane things. I was just happy to be in that moment where I was at. And a lot of times they're fleeting, because I did start existing in the past shortly after that moment hit me. I started feeling grateful and comparing it to my previous life and comparing it to like how much better this is than that. But I had that moment, just on a Monday in Austin, Texas, running errands at 11 a.m. So
Right.
those
Yeah,
moments have started carrying over into other aspects of my life, and it's really nice. It's a wonderful feeling. I think that is joy.
it is. Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, they're little gifts from God, I think, sometimes, to be present in that moment and so thankful that you feel like a swelling up inside yourself. And I was saying earlier, I don't know if you'd want to live in joy all the time. You do have to get things done, and we have to exist in this world and move through it. But having joy in your life where it's a regular thing and it's just popping in out of the blue like that, that's
Yeah.
an amazing feeling. I never had feelings
Yeah.
like that before, unless they were, yeah, unless they were like I was, chemically inducing it. So, and that's not real. That doesn't touch you fully, inside.
Yeah. It's it's the difference between like a biochemical response
Right.
and the experience of the presence of God,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
right? Which is always there. We're just focused on other things. And the biochemical response that that drugs and food and sugar, coffee, whatever, like those biochemical, and I'm not comparing the two exactly, apples to oranges, I know, um, but it's that biochemical response that can sometimes approximate that sensation, but it's not the same as the experience, the mystical, if you will, experience of the presence of God. The
It
two are
feels
not the
good, but it's
same.
a cheap knockoff. It's like
Yes.
it's like being really, really hungry and grabbing a bunch of junk food from the gas station versus being really hungry and actually being patient and sitting down for like a 5-star meal.
Right.
And then they're not comparable. In the moment, in that split moment when you're feeding yourself that gas station food, you feel right.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
hollow. Yeah, it's not filling. It's not
Mhm.
lasting. It's not nutritious. It doesn't feed your soul. It wasn't made with love, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So that moment of presence this morning after grabbing all the pet foods for you,
yeah,
and you were just present,
yeah,
and you're like, those are those moments of joy that just come through. So what's really cool is when you have that presence in chaos, or in a circumstance, a fight, an argument with someone, and you're able to have that same unwavering presence, that you're just aware of what's occurring, and there's no need to fix or change or think or figure out or in like alter anything. Those are like, for me, though, that's where true power is. We think of power as like control and influence and, all of these other manufactured things. But for me, power is presence, the ability to be present in whatever circumstance. Sure, it's easier in wonderful moments, but in difficult moments, presence is power.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I don't think power, like control over other people, is power. I think control over yourself is power, and it attracts people. When people are attracted to you or following what you're doing because you're in control of yourself, not because you're exerting control over them.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
What you're able to accomplish in groups or teams like that, where everyone respects each other or is operating in that space, is so infinitely like better than the other way around. But and most of us, we work in environments where there's a level of control over you. You know, your time, your sometimes your health, your sleep, uh, a whole bunch of things. And it doesn't build you up. It creates resentment, satisfaction, sense of
yeah.
loss, and a lack of hope.
Well, yes, and I'm glad that you brought that up because, you know, this, I see it, maybe you do too. We are sort of being ushered into a new paradigm where the power that we've just described and the leadership and the influence from this authentic, truthful place, right? When I use the word truth, I mean it's that truth that cannot be denied, the I amness, the beingness, the consciousness, call it God, call it spirit, call it source, right? It's that at the core, that as the foundation of reality. And so what I'm starting to see is more conversations like the one you and I are having now, and more a shift in leadership in that direction. So I'm curious what you see. Ooh, let me ask this question. What's the one thing you wish leaders or influencers um, would know and lead with?
I think we've already been talking about it. I think valuing relationships over outcomes, have goals, work towards those goals. Um, and there's a whole bunch of things, like I'm not saying like, I've had to cut ties with people that can't see either a vision I'm working on or can't accept, being moved off the project because I feel like this was better here or something. And so you do have to move on sometimes from people, but that, you know, it doesn't have to be like negative emotions behind that. That's on them a lot of times, right? But what I'm trying to say is go, the, having goals and working towards things is great. And I'm not saying to not do that, but when you value the relationships to get there and do put an emphasis on the people that you choose to surround yourself along the way, it can be way more rewarding than the actual goal, because I think you have to be careful. It's like you even shared earlier, like there's these emphases on goals, like in your youth with school and being a valedictorian and excelling at sports, where the goal isn't enough to fill you up. If you aren't getting joy out of what you're doing daily, or the people that you're interacting with, or the work that you're doing towards that goal, it's not like you're going to get to the end of the line and just like everything is going to be made right by just accomplishing one thing, whatever that goal was. There has to be a passion behind the process. And so if you aren't enjoying what you're doing to get to that goal, is it the right goal? I think you really have to ask yourself that. It's okay to change and adapt along the way, but if you have a goal, that's good. It is. We all should have goals and things. But the process is really important. The journey is as important as the destination, and relationships are a huge part of that, I think.
Right, right. And I love that. That's your core philosophy, it sounds like, Mike. Relationships over outcomes.
We figured it out right
That's going
here,
to be the title of this video.
right here on the Soul Driven Podcast. We figured it out. Should have done
I
this a long
love
time ago. That only took 55 minutes.
it. Okay, well, let's wrap this one up and then we'll have to circle back and have another conversation as things evolve for you. But
Love to.
yeah, what's the sort of immediate future look like for you and your work?
I'm speaking at a conference in a couple weeks, the Cosmic Summit in North Carolina. Um, and then I'm taking a vacation. I haven't had
Nice.
a vacation in a while. And this is like a vacation where I'm going to try to turn the phone off, not record, and work, which is hard. So I'm going to drive around Europe and like Bavaria. And then I just launched a tour yesterday to Egypt. So if people want to travel with me, they can. And you can find that on my social media accounts. All my accounts are W Wolf Prod, so WWOLFPROD. Websites Wandering Wolf Productions, YouTube channel Wandering Wolf. I'm always dropping videos, and I have a lot more travel coming up. Another conference into the year, another tour I'll be launching soon. Book coming out this summer. It's a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, it's all good. But updating the website right now. You can still find all the information there, but I'm updating it right now to be a bit more user friendly, so you can find everything. That's a great way to see everything that's going on.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, yes, you do have a lot going on, and I'm so grateful that you took the time
Yeah,
to have this conversation with me
thank
and
you for
our
having me
audience.
on.
Yeah, you bet. I am
And
super
my cat.
excited about the, yeah, all the animals are
Yeah.
always welcome in my world, so the more the merrier. Um, I bet these tours that you're taking people on, Egypt, first of all, that sounds really cool, but tours with you sound incredible.
It's a lot of fun. Our last one was Peru, and such a good group. We all still stay in touch. We have a thread still going. In fact, I was on there today and we all still keep up with each other from Peru. It was so good, and I'm hoping to make some more friends and lifelong friendships from the Egypt tour as well. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, if people want to travel with me and explore the world, they can do that. I really make an effort to set these trips priced where they're accessible to everyone. I think you'll find that they're priced lower than comparable trips in my space. I really want to provide the experience to people, the opportunity for people to have these type of experiences that have had such a huge impact on my life. So if you like visiting ancient sites, I mean, I can't think of a better one than Egypt. So
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Anything else that you want to share with the audience that I haven't asked before we sign off?
um, no, I'm pulling for everybody. If any, I think I just we talked about a lot of deep stuff here, and I think that if people are going through anything and they're in a space where they're trying to figure out some of the stuff that we talked about on here, sometimes it's okay to get to a point where you don't know what to do, and all you can do is just not give up and just do that. If you're ever in a space where you don't know what else to do, hang on there, don't quit, ask for help, reach out to somebody. People love you and want to see you recognize your own value in your life if you're in that space. That's what I'd love to share, I think, with people.
Beautifully said. Thank you again. This has been really great. I so appreciate you, what you're doing in the world, what you've done for yourself, what you've overcome. I can see enormous expansion and impact beyond what you've already created in your future.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate that.
keep going, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to reach out to Mike if you want to travel or check out his work, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.